What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the neighborhood. This is a very special episode. Today, we will be looking back at our predictions for 2023 and seeing who got the most right, along with making our predictions for 2024.
Welcome to the podcast where two longtime friends and sometimes a guest talk about their favorite games from the perspective of an average player. My name is Andrew Kimball.
And I'm Dylan Wren, and we are your friendly neighborhood gamers.
At the beginning of the year, Dylan and myself made a list of predictions for the year. Whoever got the most right gets to pick a game for the other person to play, and we'll do an episode about it. Today, we're going to break down how it all shook out and make our predictions for the upcoming year. You ready to do this, Dylan?
Yeah, I'm ready to find out what game I have to play.
Yeah, that is exciting. But I also think it's going to just be kind of fun to go down this list and see how close we were, how right, how wrong, and also just, again, this is kind of almost the epilogue to our end of year content. And so it's just another excuse to kind of look back at the things that happened last year and then kind of transition into what's going to happen next year, what we think might happen. So I think it's just kind of a fun exercise, and hopefully you, the listener, enjoy it as well. So let's see what we did last year. We broke it up by Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation, and then I think just some general predictions.
Yeah. That's general games industry / third party predictions, I think.
So we have quite a few here. I guess we'll just start at the top and work our way down.
Yeah. Do you want to go back and forth me and you, or just run through yours, run through mine?
We can go back and forth. That way the listeners can't just skip ahead past all of mine and get to yours,
Yeah.
They have to it'll be harder to do that.
Okay.
So the first one that I had was that the PS5 Slim released, digital only, not as ugly, and then it says bonus $250 to $300, which I guess was my price range, what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And that sort of happened.
Yeah, sort of.
They released a PlayStation 5 Slim, and it's still ugly, especially the disc version that you attach a disc drive to.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I'm trying to remember back to that episode, but you were kind of saying, no, it's going to be a more traditional box shaped console, right? You weren't thinking it was still the atrocious looking PlayStation design that they've got.
Yeah, I was thinking it was going to just be something you would feel a lot better about having on your entertainment system. I don't know that I had a design in mind, but it's basically still the same, just slimmer.
Yeah, smaller.
Yeah.
Which is not really doing a whole lot, so.
Yeah, and they still had a disk drive version, but the main unit is digital only, and I can't remember what it costs.
Yeah.
The Slim retails for $450.
Yeah.
For the digital edition and $500 for the disc. So that's...
your bonus was definitely wrong. It's still ugly. Do you feel like you earned full points for that, or are you...
No, I mean, I guess we have to have that conversation because they did release a PlayStation 5 Slim, and that's about the only thing that's true. It is the main version of it is digital only, but you can still attach a disc drive or buy the disc drive version. So I don't know. That's half a point.
Half a point. Okay.
So what was your first one?
My first one is that Spider-Man 2 will have a 2-point difference between the user score and the critic score. And because I was kind of banking on previous Sony sequels have been through Last of Us Part 2, critically acclaimed, review bombed, or the average person playing the game and leaving a review on Metacritic was yeah, I was a little disappointed in this game. The story wasn't as good, blah, blah, blah. So I was kind of expecting there to be some like disconnect there. And as of today, recording, looking at it, they're exactly the same. The critic score and the user score exactly the same, which is fine. I was a little hopeful that maybe it would be like critics gave it a 9, average user score was sitting around a 7.
Wow.
But turns out Spider-Man's a good game, even if the story's not as good as the first game.
Right.
So
Yeah.
So that gets me 0 points.
And coming off of that, I had a Spider-Man prediction as well, which was Spider-Man 2 scores higher than the base PS4 original and PS5 Miles Morales. And at least, I don't know if you updated these scores, but when I checked them, that was the case.
I didn't check them, but I do know that Spider-Man 2 is 90, and I trust you that you're not just making up 87 and 85. So that seems fair.
So yeah, full point for that one. Knocked that one out of the park.
Yep. Are you shocked by that? Because like the general sentiment that I've heard, and especially and from you too, is that like Spider-Man 1 was the better game, or is it just a better story, but the gameplay is better?
I would say it's just a better story. I think personally, like I really like the glider. I really like being able to switch between both Spider-Men. All the changes to the abilities and combat and stuff that they did, I thought made things flow a lot better. So gameplay wise, I do agree that it's probably the best of the three. It's just for me, the story was a bit of a letdown, whereas for a lot of people, maybe that didn't matter as much, or it hit other people differently, maybe.
Yeah, so it's more of like a Jedi Survivor thing where like gameplay wise, subjectively, it is a better game, but like subjectively, the story just wasn't as good for us. So
Exactly.
Yeah. So 1 point for you. My second one was that the PlayStation VR 2 is still too expensive and niche and does not interest the general consumer, meaning that it would have lower sales than the OG, which did happen.
Yeah.
So shocking. I felt like that one was a pretty like easy, like T-ball style prediction, just because, I don't know, VR. Well, Asgard's Wrath came out last month and did get like a 10 out of 10 from some outlets. So like there are better games coming out for PlayStation or for VR. But
your Half-Life Alyx's.
Yeah. But it does seem like it's still just a very niche thing. And I think it's cool for people to do stuff with it, but also seeing one of the big three console manufacturers investing so heavily into PlayStation or into VR seems weird because it does seem like that is a very niche market to me.
Yeah, I wonder if the idea behind it is that you're going for the diehards and they're willing to just throw their money away at it. Because it's niche in the sense that it's still new and you have early adopters and stuff like that, but it's also niche in like a ton of other ways that limit people being able to, like, for me, for example, me and you probably have two different reasons why we can't play VR.
Yeah, motion sickness.
Yours is motion sickness. Mine is a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
It's like I can't lock myself off from the world when I'm playing video games and be fully immersed. It's just not reality. And how many parents play video games as their escape? They're not going to make the jump to VR. They would maybe play it on the weekends or like very rarely. Like I would love to get an Oculus Quest just to mess around with, but I haven't because I can't justify spending that kind of money on something I know I'll use like maybe a couple hours every couple weeks.
Yeah. Well, and like I get it from like the sort of business side of things where it's like we're trying to get in on the ground floor and be like the console that has this as an option so that if this really kind of catches and takes off, like we're years ahead of the competition in it or something. But when I look at, like VR versus cloud gaming, I'm like, it seems like cloud gaming will have the wider appeal.
Oh, for sure.
That seems like to be the place to invest in. So, but yeah, so that one, full credit for me.
If I was still a single man, I would be playing Beat Saber like every day.
Yeah.
Because that game is just so fun. It's kind of like the modern Guitar Hero
I was going to say
equivalent.
It is the rhythm game that exists other than, Fortnite. Whatever.
Yeah, except Beat Saber's fun because you're holding lightsabers and Yeah, but it's not realistic. But yeah, that's full points for you. Unlike my next one, which I think is the last of our PlayStation predictions on my side anyways. Ghost of Tsushima 2 will be announced.
Yeah, I honestly was a little surprised that didn't get announced at some point.
Even like a tease or something.
Yeah, like it's...
Because it came out in 2020, so...
Yeah. Well, and what's PlayStation's like big game? Like, I kind of get not announcing something before...
They have Final Fantasy.
But that's not even a PlayStation game, though. I mean, it's an exclusive.
Like, what are their studios doing? Yeah, I don't think we really know. We know Insomniac's game's not coming out this year because of the leak.
Yeah.
But we don't know what their big hitter will be.
Yeah, because I could see it being like a Ghost of Tsushima.
It could still be. It just didn't get announced yet.
Which maybe we're moving more into that cycle of not announcing things with as much of a lead time. So,
smart.
Yeah. So...
But yeah, no points for that one.
All right. My next one was that Sony will have at least 52 exclusives in the year of 2023. So this is not saying Sony first-party studios will create 52 exclusives. This is that there will be 52 exclusives that exist on PlayStations that you cannot play on Nintendo Switch or on Xbox. And honestly, number one, I made this prediction because I think at the time we were doing this, it was like the Activision Blizzard stuff last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the big thing was like a bunch of the console wars are stupid. But a bunch of the console warriors were all complaining about like, you can't let Microsoft buy Activision Blizzard. Exclusives are bad.
Right.
And I'm like, you play PlayStation because of the exclusives. So I was trying to make a point of like, stop bitching about the fact that there are exclusives. They exist. And Sony has way more of them than Microsoft does, even if they were to buy Activision Blizzard, And so I went through Wikipedia's list of games that came out in 2023 and weeded out games that were available on like Nintendo Switch and Xbox. Although I will say there were a ton of games that were available on Switch and PlayStation, but not Xbox, which to me still kind of counts.
Yeah, but how many of those are like
none of the
anti-warrior?
Yeah, I was now specifically my prediction doesn't say anything about quality of games. A lot of the games, yes, are
those are both
very
the, like,
Niche
Japanese
market games that came out that, because it's the year 2024 now, were put out just available everywhere, even though like it really, they just didn't bother with the localization outside of like a translator or something, but yeah, so I counted up and there were roughly 70-ish games. I say 70-ish because there were a few games that kind of like kept popping up. And I did my best to not double count those, but I'm not 100% sure that I didn't double count some of them. But since I got 70, I was well over the 52. So I'm like, I didn't do it that much if I did it at all. And then I tried to weed out also games that like looked like they had just been ported or like something like that. Like I tried to keep it to stuff that was like coming out,
like new games
or like games that were only on like PC that were now just only coming to like PlayStation. And so there are a lot of games that were available on PlayStation and PC, but the PC market tends to be ignored.
It's like separate.
Yeah. By the console warriors. And then also the fact that PlayStation VR launched this year was really helpful because there were at least a good like 20 games of the 52 that were like PSVR games. So that did help a lot.
Meaning they weren't available on like...
No, they were
Meta.
still available on like Meta and like some of those. But again, to me, that's PC gaming.
Yeah, but I don't know. VR seems like its own thing.
I mean,
do the console warriors care about that?
Clearly not, because none of them went out and bought PlayStation VR. It sold terribly.
Did you look to see how many exclusives Nintendo and Xbox had?
I did not, because that wasn't my prediction. But the whole point of this prediction was, no matter which side of the console wars you are on and how deeply you invest in them, yours does it too. So if you're a Sony fanboy complaining about Activision Blizzard deal because, oh no, what if Call of Duty is exclusive to Microsoft? There are so many games that are exclusive to PlayStation. And if you're an Xbox person rejoicing that now you will have some exclusives, like, exclusives suck. They hurt the industry.
Right.
Or they hurt gamers.
Yeah, they hurt the community.
Yeah. And also, like, there's years worth of games that we don't get to enjoy if you're just like an Xbox person because they're only on PlayStation. So both sides suck. But that was the spirit in which that prediction was made. And I'm going to take full credit. Because
sure, yeah, you can have it.
Because there were, like, again, actual, like, good Sony good Sony PlayStation exclusives, very, maybe 10, but ones that were just kind of like, hey, here's some weird niche game with a name that I can't pronounce, that has like a semicolon in it, and also like is the fifth one of this series that is only coming out on PlayStation 4 and 5. Like, yeah, that's here.
Well, then you ready to move into our Nintendo block?
Yeah.
My first prediction was that a meaningful upgrade to Switch is released and it will help games run and look better.
Nope.
That has not happened yet.
I feel like everyone is a bit shocked that there's pretty much just even been no discussion of it.
I think because part of me is like, wow, I can't believe I fell into that trap, because people have been predicting that for every year since like 2018 or whenever, 2019, when we started Level Playing Field, we were talking about a new Switch. But I think the thing that made me think it might happen was Tears of the Kingdom coming out, and they could do it alongside that and it would help it run better. I don't think that I expected, or a lot of people expected, Tears to run as good as it does on the Switch, which is shocking. So that didn't happen. No points for me.
Yeah, that is one that is a bit surprising, that we haven't even like heard rumblings of like there will be a new one, I
mean, we've been hearing things, I think, that make it seem a little bit more likely this year.
Yeah.
But nothing official.
Yeah, like nothing from Nintendo itself.
No.
Like the industry, it's like an open secret that Nintendo's clearly working on the next iteration of a Switch.
Well, and I think there've been like some more substantial like hardware leaks and stuff that have come out, but when that happened last time, it turned out to just be the OLED.
Yeah.
So, which is technically an upgrade, but not in what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. All right. So my first prediction is that no Switch upgrade would come out.
Wow.
And so I anti-predicted you on that one, because I was like, no, like, I don't actually think that's going to happen. And it didn't.
Only one of us could win.
Yeah. So I get my point there.
Well, then I took the negative route like you, and I said that there would be no Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, because everybody keeps talking about those games getting their remasters, at the very least, ported to Switch that came out on Wii U.
Yeah.
And that still has not happened, so I will take full points for that.
Yep. Which really kind of just seems like a missed up. Like,
they're going to make a pretty good amount of money when Wind Waker hits Switch.
I was going to say, do you think that, both of those, like, they're not even dealing with those? Like, they haven't even started on remakes, remasters. B, they are actively working on remakes, remasters of those two games and just haven't announced it yet. Or C, have the remakes, remasters done and are just holding on to them until like they need something to come out.
I think it's probably the last one, because they already remastered them for the Wii U. So all they have to do is just port it to the Switch.
Yeah.
Like they have done with so many Wii U games that nobody really got to play because nobody had a Wii U.
Yeah.
We'll get to another Zelda-related prediction I have for next year, but I think those ports are done. They're just saving, especially hearing about the fact that like Pikmin 3 has been done for a year or 2 years or whatever it was, and they were just waiting for the right time to like slot it into their portfolio.
Yeah.
Nintendo does things probably the smart. It's like Zelda's the one franchise that is like always getting delayed and stuff, but for a lot of their other franchises, it's like, yeah, we'll release that when it's time.
Yeah, because they seem to not really like try to cannibalize their own like first party stuff that comes out, and so it's
because they know they're only really competing with themselves. Like, who else is competing with Mario?
Yeah, and so it's like, yeah, we'll drop these two things, and in a slow month where we don't have another big first party exclusive coming out, here's Wind Waker remastered.
Well, like this year, Tears of the Kingdom was huge, but it was early on in the year. So then later, they released the Super Mario Wonder, Super Mario RPG remake, Pikmin 3. Like, none of those games are as Zelda, but they were enough to keep some momentum going for the rest of the year.
My next one was that at least one Pokemon game will come out and get an 8 out of 10, with the unspoken part of that prediction being that it wouldn't deserve the 8 out of 10 that it would get. And that did not happen.
Was there some DLC or something for Scarlet and Violet? I
think
haven't
there
really
was,
kept up with
but
Pokemon at all.
Yeah, I'm not counting that.
Right.
I figured there would be at least a like remake of one of the Game Boy ones or something. Like,
yeah.
I don't know exactly how much they were putting stuff out, but it seemed like there would be one that would come out and do okay. But nope, no Pokemon this year outside of like some DLC, I think. So I also wasn't sure if there was going to be like another Pokemon Legends, because that had been a couple years
right
that one had been over. But I think they maybe released some DLC for it either this year or last year, but again, not counting DLC.
I took a similar approach for my last Nintendo prediction, except I did a bit more of a Hail Mary than you did with Pokemon, and said that Metroid Prime 4 would be released. And we got the Metroid Prime remake for the first game, but 4, we didn't hear anything about it. So that's a big old whiff.
Yeah. And mine that I really wanted to happen was that the Nintendo eShop would get an overhaul that made the quality of life just so much better, and it made it easier to find good games and not shovelware trash. And that did not happen. I got on the eShop maybe like to look at their year-end sale after Christmas, and it was still the same terrible eShop experience that I had at the beginning of the year. And so I'm pretty sure it's just not fixable on the Switch.
Yeah, or they just don't care. It works good enough. They're making money off of it. Like, they don't need to.
Yeah, well, to be fair, you can always find the Nintendo stuff. That's always like highlighted and featured. So if you're looking for a first party game, which I mean, on Switch, probably I am. It is easier to find that stuff, but like if you're trying to find some like third party indie thing, it could be tough unless it's a top seller.
I remember thinking that prediction was hilariously unlikely when you made it, so I was like, go on, give me the lead with that one. Xbox time.
Yes.
My first prediction was that Xbox will get rid of Xbox Gold.
Now, so I have this one, I updated that one today, because I think you had no, but I put maybe, because like, what did you mean when you made that prediction? Did you mean like they're making online play free, or did you like what? Because
I think
they've changed Xbox Live Gold to Xbox or Game Pass Core or something like that, or Xbox Live Core or something, which is the same thing and gets you access to like the game, like the base,
like a game
library or whatever. It's like the 10 or 12 games that
we
are
talked
available.
About this on a Neighborhood Watch or something.
And so like, if you were saying like the Xbox Live Gold, Xbox Game Pass thing is confusing, and they're going to like get rid of Gold and just bundle it all under Game Pass, then kind of yes, that happened. But then also, if you were saying they're going to stop charging for gold and like online play,
right? They're just going to let you play for free.
Like essentially, it didn't go away. It's just different now.
Which I think was the spirit of my prediction, more so that they would get rid of the pointless system that was Xbox Live Gold and the games with gold and all that nobody was doing anything with because they were never good because everything good is on Game Pass. And so kind of my thinking was, yes, they would do something, bundle it with Game Pass or do something like that. And they did try to like raise the price of gold at first, right?
Yeah,
and then they walked that back.
That was this year.
Yeah. But yeah, I had forgotten about the change to like Game Pass Ultimate and Core and all that. So that is kind of what I meant, was that the Xbox Live Gold branding would go away and that the Game Pass would become the focus.
Yeah.
Because I think if either console stops charging for online services, it will be Microsoft first.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing, instead of saying we're going to let you play online for free, they're saying, hey, come subscribe to our really awesome service that has all these benefits and also it'll let you play online.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they haven't quite let go of that yet. Although like some games will just like bypass it, like Fortnite and probably just all the Epic games.
I think a lot of the free to play games let you not.
So yeah, I think now that you mentioned the like rebranding thing, that was kind of the spirit of the prediction.
So is that a full point, half a point? What do you say?
I think it's a full point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they got rid of games with gold and everything, and they rebranded everything and changed like the different tiers of Game Pass.
Yeah. So because cool. That was my main question there is like, I don't know what you like exactly what you meant there. So
yeah.
All right. Mine is the Activision Blizzard deal isn't shot down, but doesn't finish in 2023. And so this one I also have flagged as a maybe because the FTC has on the one hand, Microsoft has closed the deal with Activision Blizzard. Bobby Kotick is out, and I believe Microsoft is taking over. So on that hand, yes, it did happen, but it did finish in 2023. On the other hand, the FTC appealed that acquisition and merger and everything, and so I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's I don't know if they somehow miraculously win that case, if that means Microsoft has to return
give it
Activision
back.
Blizzard. I don't really understand how that would even work at this point. And I don't think that Microsoft is going to lose that case. I think the spirit that I made this in was we won't be done hearing about it.
Oh yeah.
Basically. But I leave it up to you as far as how many points you think that was worth, if it's half a point, if it's no points, if it is a...
To me, it feels like a half a point because they did close the deal in 2023, and this appeal probably won't amount to anything, but we're not playing Call of Duty on Game Pass yet in 2024. So I feel like there is an argument to be made that, it still hasn't fully kicked in and gone through, and there is the appeal. And for the most part, I feel like we're done hearing about it. I think a lot of the podcasts and stuff I listen to don't talk about it nearly as much.
Yeah, it'll be a footnote whenever the deal gets decided or whatever.
But it is still ongoing technically. So that feels like a 50-50 split to me.
Okay, that's fair.
My next Xbox prediction was Starfield launches buggy and gets an 80 plus on Metacritic, which also to me kind of feels like a 50-50 because like what I put here was that it was praised for not being that buggy for a Bethesda launch, but it did get over an 80.
Yeah. Yeah. Which it shocks me that it got over an 80. I mean,
but
it's good, I guess. To me, it's a solid 75 game.
Which I think it got from some outlets.
Yeah.
You think about the caliber of game that came before it with mostly just Skyrim, but also Fallout 3 and some of those. New Vegas wasn't Bethesda, but this is a game that easily you could have seen getting 9s, and it didn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And for a bit, I did run into a couple of bugs in my time playing it, but
Yeah.
nothing compared to like what you would expect. So
yeah, when the brief time that I personally played it, I didn't have any real issues other than the game itself. And there were no news stories about how like on PlayStation your save file is just constantly growing until it like nukes your game or whatever happened when Skyrim launched originally on PS3. Like those kind of things just didn't really happen with Starfield. So.
Yeah, it was more so like, hey, this game itself just isn't that great. And like the problems were not like I've run into this bug that has made me unable to progress or whatever. It's I just don't want to progress because I'm not enjoying this experience as much as I want to. So yeah, that seems fair. Half a point.
Cool. I'll take it.
At least one Xbox first party game comes out every 2 months / or 6 by end of year for partial credit. And I have this flagged as a maybe because there were 5 that came out. Hi-Fi Rush, Minecraft Legends, Starfield, Redfall, Forza Motorsport. So 5 did come out. The questionable part is there were a couple of other first party games that did come out, but it wasn't like, so one of them was Ghostwire Tokyo, which had released on PlayStation already. I think it was like a PlayStation exclusive.
Kind of like Deathloop.
Before, like, yeah, it was already in the deal before Microsoft bought Bethesda. And so it was now coming to Xbox. And so, like, I don't know if that one counts. There was also the Age of Empires 2 and Age of Empires 4 console editions that launched. Now, Age of Empires 2 is a game that came out in the late 90s, early 2000s. Right. And Age of Empires 4, I think, came out maybe a couple years ago or something. But like the console edition, I don't know if that one counts. So I leave that one up to you. I definitely don't think it hit the like every 2 months.
No.
Something was coming out.
No, yeah.
Because they're like, I think the final game on this list was Starfield, and that came out in September. Like, I don't think they really had a big thing that came out.
Forza was before Starfield?
Maybe Forza came out in like October or something like that.
Yeah.
But there was not like a November, December, I don't think really had any Microsoft thing come out. So it definitely didn't do that part, but I don't know if I deserve the partial credit because technically 8 first party games did come out this year. Untechnically, only 5 of them were new.
Untechnically. So, yeah, I guess I'm willing to like combine the things coming to Xbox or console for the first time. Like, I think the Age of Empires for me carry more weight than Ghostwire.
Yeah.
But you take them all together and I say like, yeah, we could call it half a point.
Partial credit.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Let's see. The last Xbox one, I put that Xbox will release like a streaming device. Partial credit if it's just an app, meaning like game streaming.
And so the Samsung TV is not like what you're looking like. That's not enough of one for you.
So they technically have like the Xbox Cloud Gaming app that you can play games on your phone. And then they do have the Samsung thing. For full credit, definitely what I meant was like, we're going to get an Xbox Fire Stick.
Yeah.
That did not happen. The Samsung and mobile app, like that feels like just dipping their toe into this.
Because you like this, it seems like the spirit that you meant it in was like, I'm going to be able to like cloud stream anything to my TV and just play it. Versus like, yes, technically you can still do the mobile app thing and link a Bluetooth controller to your phone or whatever, but that's not really like.
I was like, the app I would imagine would be more like on every smart TV, like a Netflix,
you could just download it,
or like, Hulu is already there. Like there would be the Xbox app, and then you could sign in and start playing games, and that did not happen. No.
Okay, so sounds like no credit there. My final Xbox prediction is Starfield was going to come out in November. I thought it was going to get delayed a little bit more than it did. Did it get delayed?
It got delayed, but I think that had already happened by the time we made these predictions.
So I thought I guess I thought maybe it was going to get delayed again, bumped back into, and like honestly, maybe it wouldn't have been a bad idea to delay it a little bit more.
I don't know if it would have fixed the
I don't
core
think it would have
game,
fixed
though.
it,
Yeah.
but yeah, it came out on September 6th, so it did not. I missed it by a month because I think my partial credit was like somewhere in the last 3 months of the year, so October, November, December, and came out in September.
Yeah, they really got you on that one. I feel like I know that they wanted it originally to be like November 11th of 2022 or something. Like there was some significant date that it got pushed from, basically for like another year. But I don't think that after we made this prediction, it got hit with any more delays.
Yeah.
I think they were just bug fixing at that point. So now it's time for the more industry predictions here. And my first one is that IGN will continue to forget that numbers other than 8 exist. And I put 20 games this year.
Yep.
I briefly looked at movies and TV shows, but I don't know enough about like the movies and TV shows that came out this year. But there's a lot of 8s in those categories too.
Yeah.
But just in the games, let me read this list out real quick, and I'll kind of rapid fire it because it's long.
Yeah.
And I did leave off some things that I thought were
like re-releases.
Well, just like pretty forgettable. There are some things on here that you could argue are like, man, like nobody really, like it wasn't a big release, but it was a name that, you know, the industry at least recognized. So Wild Hearts, Atomic Heart, Company of Heroes 3, Wo Long, Sons of the Forest, WWE 2K23, Have a Nice Death, Meet Your Maker, the Horizon DLC, Advance Wars Reboot Camp, Dredge, Age of Wonders 4, Darkest Dungeon 2, Lego 2K Drive, Amnesia the Bunker, Harmony the Fall of Reverie, F123, Viewfinder, Exoprimal, Moving Out 2, Blasphemous 2, Immortals of Avium, Armored Core 6, Sea of Stars, Trine 5, Lies of P, Mortal Kombat 1, Wargroove 2, which is crazy. I didn't realize Wargroove 2 came out. Forza Motorsport, Assassin's Creed Mirage, Lords of the Fallen, Hot Wheels Unleashed 2, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Thirsty Suitors, Talos Principle 2, Persona 5 Tactica, Super Mario RPG Remake, Sonic Dream Team, which I just saw that one today. Never really heard of it, but Resident Evil 4 VR, Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, The Finals, and then the PlayStation 5 Slim.
That is a lot of games that got an 8. Now, granted, I guess you didn't break down like how many 8s they gave versus like
9s.
Yeah, like other numbers. But it's still a lot of 8s, I would imagine. And I know that IGN's come out with the whole like why we give so many 8s or whatever, and it's like kind of number one, we don't review a whole lot of games that are not going to be worth our time. And then also kind of number two, like in this day and age, it's easy. It's not easy to make games, but it's easy enough to make a game that at least
it's
by
functional.
the rubric gets like a 7, you know?
It's just interesting to see like Sea of Stars, Lies of P, Armored Core 6, Assassin's Creed, Marvel Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, they're
all sitting at 8.
I was going to say, there do seem to be a lot of games on that list where I know other outlets gave them either higher or lower. Armored Core, I think, was getting a lot of better reviews from other places, and IGN gave it an 8. Spider-Man 2, I think, got a lot of better reviews from other places, got an 8. There was some other one that you mentioned that I can't remember right now, but it was like, IGN gave that an 8. A lot of other places gave it lower than that. So,
oh yeah,
but no, I definitely think you hit the nail on the head there. IGN has memed its way into being like a mostly 8 reviewer.
And I know part of the problem is they don't review games like they did review some crap this year. They reviewed Gollum. They reviewed the day before got like a 0 or something, which is also a meme.
Yeah.
So they did step out a little bit that way. And then I think, like Zelda got a 10 and Baldur's Gate got a 10. And so they did do some like 9. Super Mario Wonder, I think, was like a 9.
Yeah.
There were some games
they showed their bias to like a very specific subset of games. Yeah.
And the problem is, and we've talked about this before, the problem is that 5 is not the midpoint.
Yeah.
8 is the midpoint. It's like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so 8 is kind of the average, and a lot of average games get reviewed. And the other problem is that they went away from their 100-point scale with percentages. So it's like someone could have been like, oh, this is almost a 9, but I can't give it that, so it's an 8. Whereas before it could have been like an 8.9 or an 8.7, which adds a little more nuance to the score. But it's still a problem of 5 not being the midpoint.
Yeah.
Because if people see a 5, then it's perceived as trash. So we've kind of moved to a 5-point scale that starts at 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I don't think that's IGN's fault.
No, that's just
I was going to say
industry.
Like, well, and just like life in general, like school gives you grades.
Right. Yeah.
A 60 is F.
Right.
And so already 5 is not average. 50 is not average. 50 is you failed a lot.
Which is kind of why when we rate games, I just use the school alphabetical scale, because it's like that's what we're doing anyways with the numbers. Is if you see something, but it's different in games where like you could play a game that's a 6 and have a good time with it, and it's not an F for you.
Yeah,
but it's kind of perceived that way because it got Days Gone got a 6, and that game is not a failure of a game. It's just the reviewer didn't like it that much.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because realistically, when we're grading games, it's kind of like you're reading a paper and grading a paper, which is always a little bit of a subjective experience. And so it's like, yeah, for me, I read this paper and I understood what this person was trying to say, and boom, here it is. Like, this is it's not the best, but I give it a B. Whereas someone else reading it's like, yeah, I just don't like the way that you write F. So...
About the prediction itself, though, there was a moment where I was like, man, should I have picked 7? I didn't look to see how many 7s they did this year, but I'm glad I picked 8, and I'm glad that IGN like helped me out with this kind of meme prediction and gave me a list that long to read off on this episode. So I appreciate that.
So I was gonna say too, I think I looked in like January or February, like end of one of those months, and it was already like a solidly locked in, like, you got this one, because most of their reviews in just the first couple of months were 8s.
When we had Wild Hearts, Atomic Heart, Company of Heroes, Wo Long, Sons of the Forest, all those were 8s and had already come out. Yeah.
Yeah. I predicted that EA would actually release some good games this year. I thought they were going to do like 4 out of the top 20. Number one, there was a lot that came out this year that kind of like showed up in the top 20 that was like, oh wow, I didn't expect to see this there.
Oh really?
Well, Baldur's Gate 3 kind of came out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, I get what you're saying.
And I thought Alan Wake was going to be a good game for me. I didn't expect it to like come out and just be like boom in that top 20. Like there's a lot of like that kind of stuff. And then obviously like the Metacritic scores are all skewed towards Nintendo because all of the critics in the industry are skewed towards Nintendo anyway.
Is that what you were using, was Metacritic?
Yeah, I just looked at Metacritic. Yeah. But I was kind of like banking on like, okay, Wild Hearts is coming out this year. I'm hoping that'll be good.
Star
and then
Wars
also,
coming out.
Yeah, like Star Wars Jedi Survivor's coming out. Neither of those showed up in the top 20.
Oh, wow.
Because I was like, yeah, maybe top 20. But there was, like I said, there was a lot that this was a very good year for games.
Yeah.
I think any other year I made this prediction, it probably would have been a lot closer to being true. Because I was like, we know Jedi is coming out. We know Wild Hearts is coming out. Those will probably be good. And then maybe EA will have like a Joseph Ferris game and, something else that comes out,
Maybe a sports game will squeak its way in there.
Yeah. And so I was kind of like thinking, you know what, maybe EA, like Ubisoft is kind of the new EA. And so EA, maybe this is a redemption year. And it was not. It was, they did put out some good games.
You can say they had really stiff competition this year.
But this year was just a rough time to be putting out games and hoping that they would break into the top 20. So no points there.
My next one was that the Game Awards will have a change in structure, noticeable differences in how the show is structured or speeches, or whether the public's allowed. This was all kind of based on the kid walking up on the stage. And I would say that happened. There was obvious security guards. There's the whole thing about the please wrap it up for the speeches because of Christopher Judge. Like, that's been really critically examined by the industry. So
yeah, like, and that's, on the one hand, I feel like this is a very, like easy T-ball.
You got to go for
prediction.
A few of those.
Yeah, because it's like, I feel like that's the narrative around the Game Awards, is that they swing like a pendulum back and forth. It's like next year, they probably will let people speak more, and it probably will be more awards. And then the gamers that watch it will bitch about the fact that they didn't see enough trailers, and it'll swing back the other way next year. But also, you did like hit it out of the park. Like, everything that you predicted happened.
Yeah.
So, full points. My next one was that Forspoken will have a higher critic score than Hogwarts Legacy.
I couldn't remember if this was something that came up during the Fantasy Critic draft or if it was part of this.
I think it was both.
Episode.
I think it was both.
Yeah.
I was kind of banking on perhaps a lot of the critic side of the industry hitting it for being a Harry Potter game. And I was also I thought Forspoken was maybe going to be a better game. I thought it was maybe also like going to be up there in like the 80s.
It looked
near Hogwarts
cool before release. I think it was the writing that really hurt it.
Yeah, so I was hoping that Forspoken would be good enough to get it close, and then enough critics would maybe hit Harry Potter for being a Harry Potter game that it would squeak out, is kind of what I was hoping would happen when I made this prediction. And that did not happen.
No.
Forspoken got a 67 on Metacritic. Harry Potter got an 84 on Metacritic. Neither of them like stood out this year. Forspoken, I think, was forgotten way faster than Harry Potter. But also, Harry Potter came out at the beginning of this year, was talked about for like a week, and then it seems like everyone kind of moved on.
Harry Potter was like Hogwarts Legacy was perfect for the fans that wanted it, and then like me, as someone who likes Harry Potter, but it's not like my favorite. I played it for probably 5 to 10 hours and then fell off and never went back. It's just like, I mean, it did some cool things with the combat and whatever, but Forspoken is like near the top of my list of games that I will play as soon as they're below $20 or on PlayStation Plus for the month. Like, I want to try it myself, but I don't want to pay for it.
I was going to say, Forspoken to me screams like, hey, this will be maybe like a decent video game.
Right.
And I'm also not coming into it expecting it to be like this massive, awesome story. I'm just wanting to have fun for 15 hours. And
the story could have been so cool, though, because it's kind of like the Narnia thing of like real life person pulled into Fantasyland.
Yeah.
I want to say that they've patched some of the like your wristband not talking as much and some of the things that annoyed people at launch. So it probably will be a better experience too by the time we get around to it.
True.
But
yeah, no points there.
My next one was that EA, Ubisoft, CDPR opt out of Summer Games Fest and don't hold events in that window, which
I think is true. The one I don't know about is EA.
Well, you linked this. Ubisoft backed out, but is holding an event in June.
Oh, I gave you a no on this one. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, they had events in Summer Games Fest. Like, I think the spirit of this prediction was that some of the big publishers, kind of like what Sony does, will not hold themselves to that specific window in the summer and will just do things whenever they want. But a lot of them did kind of rally around Summer Games Fest and be part of it.
Well, and I think that rolls into sort of my prediction, which was like the big three were not going to be present at E3. And so E3 was canceled.
Yeah.
And so I think EA, Ubisoft, and some of those were still like planning on being involved with E3, and then E3 got canceled. And so like, I think Ubisoft already had its stuff ready to go.
Yeah.
And so that's why they were just like, yeah, we'll do it for Summer Games Fest, I guess.
Xbox too, I think, because they usually do stuff with E3.
Yeah.
Because they're right there. Well, they do stuff in conjunction with E3, but they're at their own theater and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's a point for you and not a point for me.
Yes.
Tears of the Kingdom wins Game of the Year, but won't be our personal Game of the Year.
Which...
that's a no.
Yeah.
It was my personal Game of the Year.
Now, when you made that prediction, what did you think was going to be your personal Game of the Year over
I thought Spider-Man 2 had a real shot
Yeah.
before playing it.
Maybe Shadows of the Erd Tree.
Yeah, maybe more Elden Ring. I had pretty high hopes for Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
I think really it was in the back of my head, like, if Spider-Man had stepped everything up from the last 2 games and nailed it, it could have had a real shot at like making me think a little harder.
Yeah. Also,
I knew Liza P was kind of chilling out there, and I was like, if this is really Bloodborne-y, it could, it could do some work. So I had enough doubt in my mind, and also Tears of the Kingdom. It was like, oh well, it's probably just gonna be more Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
There was just enough there that I thought I would go for this prediction, and
yeah, because it flip flopped. It did not win the Game of the Year. Well, it did win some outlets Game of the Year.
It didn't win the Game Awards. Yeah,
it was not Game of the Year,
and
it did win yours. I didn't play it. It probably would have shown up on my list, but it wouldn't have been Game of the Year.
I thought that it would sweep in the way that Baldur's Gate did, but because
no
Baldur's
one thought
Gate
about
was,
Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate wasn't on my radar at all when we made these predictions. So, like, had Baldur's Gate not come out this year, I'm pretty sure Zelda would have swept like a lot harder. Like, Alan Wake might have given it a run in some categories, but I think some of the big categories, and especially Game of the Year and like Game Awards, and then all like the major outlets, Tears of the Kingdom would have been the dominating game.
Yeah, yeah.
But it coming out so early in the year, and then Baldur's Gate just kind of coming out of nowhere, those were not things that I saw coming.
Yep. A lot of people didn't.
No.
Our entire fantasy critic league did not see it coming. All right. My next one was the new Assassin's Creed game gets an 80 plus on Metacritic. And I was basing that off of just some of the talk of like leading into Assassin's Creed Mirage. There was good talk of like, hey, it's a shorter experience that's like getting back to the roots of Assassin's Creed and like
stealth focused. Smaller city,
yeah, and so things were looking decent.
The idea behind it was great.
Yeah, and then Assassin's Creed came out. I didn't actually look up and see what it got.
I want to say it was like a 76 or 70.
Yeah, like I don't think it was super far off, but it was not where it needed to be to get me some points here. Assassin's Creed Mirage got a 76 on PlayStation, a 77 on Xbox, and a 76 on PC.
Yeah.
And that seems fair, Like it's, for everything I've heard about it is like, yeah, it's not like a terrible game, but it's also not great.
Yeah.
So
the 70s are.
Yeah. If it had gotten 4 more points on average, I would have this correct. But so I was close, but 0 points. Should have put a range on it.
And then my last kind of real one is that, well, I guess my last industry one, I'll say that, is that Armored Core will not be a Souls-like.
Fine.
This was such a big conversation at the beginning of the year, and then it kind of just went away. Obviously, when it was known that it just went away, but yeah.
I was watching a trailer for Armored Core and 6 because we made the videos for like our Game of the Year or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I pulled an Armored Core 6 trailer for that. And watching it again, I'm like, this looks like you're just circling locked on with your sword. Like it looks like a Souls.
They show the sword a lot in the like promotional stuff because it's cool.
Yeah.
But I dropped the sword basically after like the second mission and never used a sword again. There's obviously like FromSoft DNA in there.
But just not a Souls-like.
The core loop, the core game, even the moment-to-moment gameplay, like you're taking damage from mobs like almost constantly in the levels. The boss fights are probably the closest
to... Well, it's separate levels. It's not like an interconnected... Like I was thinking it would be like not separate levels. I thought it was going to be like...
Yeah. There's no bonfire. You don't lose your currency when you die. When you die, it's like, hey, you want to just like tweak your mech right here in this screen and try again?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's checkpointed really like
I do think some of the combat does seem a lot more Soulsy.
Oh yeah, there was some definite inspiration.
But it is I will concede that it was not a Souls-like. So and my last real prediction was that Prince of Persia was finally going to get canceled. The remake of Sands of Time, which Ubisoft kind of keeps talking a little bit about to let us know that it's not canceled, but it's also not been done anything. Like nothing has been done with it.
Right.
And
still exists out there somewhere.
Yeah, they haven't officially come out and said, yeah, we're not making it anymore, but they also haven't shown anything on it anymore. And so they are making a new Prince of Persia game.
Just getting really good previews.
Yeah, which does seem like it will be cool. And it's 2D side scroller or something, so I'm not like
it's
as interested in it. It's not a remake of Sands of Time, which is what I want. I want the Sands of Time trilogy. I want to go back to that. But they haven't officially come out and said that it is canceled.
Maybe they're waiting to see how this game does, and it's like, oh, if the IP is getting some attention and some love, we'll pump more resources into this remake and take it off the shelf.
Yeah,
because it was some sort of like support studio or something that was doing it, and then
it was like one of the smaller
they got it taken away, didn't they? Like did they give it to another studio, or did they absorb
remember
that studio? I feel like there was some sort of structural changing and shifting that happened around that game.
I think they showed a trailer for it,
and
the trailer looked awful.
Yeah, they did do that.
And so I think that caused them to look a whole lot closer and realize, like, this is not working. This is not going in the direction we want it to go in. And so then there was like some reshuffling and stuff. But that I think that had all happened when I made this prediction.
Oh yeah.
And then
they had already delayed it.
Basically this year we haven't heard a peep about it, which to me is like it's probably canceled, but I'm not.
Or they just started over.
Yeah, I'm not going to take credit for this because
it's not
they haven't actually said anything. Yeah. Jason Schreier has not done an expose on like the downfall of this remake, so no points there.
I found out in my research for an upcoming YouTube video that Assassin's Creed Mirage was also made by like a support studio. Like it wasn't one of the main studios, which doesn't change how I feel about the game, but it is kind of like, oh, I mean, it's their first crack at it, I guess.
Yeah. Makes you look at it in a little bit like you were expecting, like
the Valhalla team.
Yeah. Ubisoft Montreal or whoever it is to have made it. And it's like, oh, actually it was just like this little random studio that has an Ubisoft name, but is not.
Yeah, they probably did support for Valhalla and stuff like that, but they were like the DLC team, obviously, and then their DLC got big, and they're like, well, we can make this a full game, and
and they probably didn't want to make it a full game. They were probably just like, but we made DLC. Why do we have to do this?
Yeah.
Because we have nothing coming out.
Right.
So.
My final prediction of this 2023 predictions, which we did a lot.
Yeah.
Was that I will win Fantasy Critic this year.
Now, when I looked today, this like about halfway through the year, I think we had gone in and we had updated the predictions, just kind of like cleared it up or whatever.
Yeah, seen if any had like taken place. Yeah,
and this was marked as a no, not looking likely, because I guess early on this year you were struggling.
Yeah, I think I had some games that came out later in the year. I think maybe I had some counter picks. I don't know exactly why I think also this year was just so hectic for me. I kind of neglected Fantasy Critic. I did the draft, I did a few pickups, and then I kind of just neglected it for a lot until finally, I think towards the end of the year, I picked up like Super Mario Brothers Wonder.
Yeah.
Like I just spent all my budget on a few things, and some of them really panned out, and some of them were like Lords of the Fallen or some of those that were like 72 or whatever. And it ended up like it was a pretty close race between a few of us, and we'll dive deeper into it we're going to do the next draft as an episode and a YouTube video. So we'll go over the results from last year on that episode. But yeah, it was midway through the year. I don't think I was feeling very hot about winning this one, but I ended up, maybe because I wasn't taking it as seriously, I ended up being able to kind of pull it out at the end.
Yeah. Well, and I think we had a couple of upsets, you know. I think early on in the year, Eric from Wait For It had gotten hit by like his counter pick of Hogwarts or whatever.
Legacy,
but I think like Kyle and Jay were both like killing it with some of their pickups that came out earlier in the year that were like 10 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s or whatever.
Right.
And then you had your stuff come out and finish out the year strong. So
what was your final prediction for 2023?
my final prediction is that people are going to love the Mario movie and stop complaining about the Mario needs to have an accent thing, which did happen.
Yeah, that could not be truer. It's so funny to me how all the people complaining about Chris Pratt and some of the rest of the cast, but mostly Chris Pratt,
Yeah.
have pretty much like their stances now. Yeah, he was fine.
Yeah.
He was fine, but the movie was fine. But like general audiences and kids, like my daughter and her cousins and stuff, like they love the Mario movie. The Mario movie it's just going to be a classic, like go-to kids movie at this point. It kind of reminds me of the Pokemon thing, where all the like core gamers get all bent out of shape over a kid's game every time it releases.
Yep.
But they forget that they're not the target audience. Like Nintendo wants you to go see the movie and spend money on it, obviously. But they really want you to take your kids to go do it so that your kids ask to watch it over and over at home, and they want to go buy the Mario games and the Mario toys in the future and go to Mario Land in Orlando or wherever they built that.
Yeah.
California. So it's like, I feel like the core gaming audience is so self-absorbed sometimes that they forget that this was not for them.
Yeah. Well, it's very similar to like the Star Wars. Like, I don't know if you've seen that interview with Sam Witwer.
I don't think so.
So, because he was the voice of Darth Maul.
Yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah. He was also Starkiller in.
He's also Deacon St. John.
Oh yeah, I forget that he was in a vampire werewolf ghost show on Sci-Fi Channel called Being Human. That's where I know him from.
That's so sad.
That's a deep cut. It was a remake of a BBC show.
Was that back before they spelled it SYFY?
I think it was. I think it was
back
still
actual
sci-fi. Yeah. It was in like the early 2000s. Anyway, but he was doing an interview. I think it was him. It might have been someone else, but I think it was him.
He's pretty outspoken on his like opinions on Star Wars.
Where he was basically like sitting down and was just like, you're just like whiny little fanboys that are upset because Star Wars didn't grow up with you. It was always a children's movie. Right. Like it was a cool kids movie that was just the hero's journey. And then they made it for different kids when they made episodes 1, 2, and 3 and not you. And then they made the new trilogy for different kids. And like, you're just complaining because it didn't get big and dark and you know, like become an adult thing. You know, it's still just kind of like a kids, young adults sort of thing, you know? So,
exactly. Yeah.
And that is definitely the Mario, like a lot of the game stuff where it's like, oh yeah, I have fond memories of playing this as a child. And now I'm an adult and I want the gritty Pokemon where Pikachu pulls out a gun and just murders Charizard. And it's like, that's not going to happen. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. So
yeah, you get full points for that one.
Yep.
Did you actually tally these up as we've been talking about points, or are we just kind of...
Yeah. No.
Okay.
I had...
What's our final score then?
So I accumulated a grand total of 6 points across all categories.
That seems so low when we just spent like over an hour talking about all these predictions.
Yeah. Well, we had 15 predictions each, and so I got 6 right on average, or you know, some partial credit or whatever, and you got 8 correct or points. So
pretty,
some of yours
pretty close
credit, which means that you win. You get to pick a game that I have to play and that we will do an episode on at some point this year.
Yeah.
Hopefully within reason, not some like 200-hour game that I have to go play.
So I have a short list of 7 games.
Interesting. 7. That's a short list.
Yeah. Well, I looked through like my entire library.
Yeah.
And was like, what?
When I have made the mistake of like playing some games that would have been for sure shoe-ins for like, I played Plague Tale,
right?
Which would have been
probably
like,
would have been
probably would have
list.
been the game. I played Spider-Man, like some of the ones that you tend to evangelize a bit. So,
and there's a couple here that it's like it would be fun to do an episode on this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it'd be fun to do an episode on all these I have like Mortal Shell on here, which is one that I'm always talking about, that like I'm like, just try it.
Before Lies of P came out, it was maybe your favorite.
It was like
FromSoft Souls like.
Yeah, it was one of the better AA Souls like games out there. I also don't know if like what precedent I want to set here, because what if you win next year?
I won't. But that's a nice thought.
And then you're like, all right, go play Persona 5 or whatever. I think the game that I want you to play and us to do an episode on is Death Stranding.
Interesting choice. That is a Kojima game and will be my first Kojima game. So, but we can probably make that happen.
Yeah, we can make it happen, and I might go back and revisit it as well. That way I can have fresh thoughts, although I do have I have fragments of that game like burned into my mind, which is one of the main reasons I picked it. It is probably one of the weirdest and most unique experiences I've had, because I also came to it as a fairly, like, I played some of Metal Gear Solid 5, and that was like my Kojima experience. So it's one that I think we'll have a really good time talking about once you play it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited to get to that part of this.
Well, and like, on the one hand, like, I don't know a ton about like the story, because I didn't really like watch a ton about this game, because I was like, yeah, I mean, like, it seems cool, but I think when it came out originally, it was a PlayStation exclusive.
Was, yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, not even interested. But the little I do know about the story, I'm like, it's the story part of it seems right up my alley. It seems like it's kind of that weird fiction, like kind of ambiguous sci-fi type of thing, which I'm always down for. Gameplay wise, I'm probably just going to set it to easy and like do whatever in the gameplay, because it sounds like that's not where the game shines.
Yeah, unless you're one of those people that like finds the zen in it, which is something that didn't really happen for me.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to talk about the whole experience once you get to the other side of it, because it's a weird one.
Yeah, it does seem like a weird one. So be on the lookout. At some point this year, we will be talking about Death Stranding.
If we're smart, maybe we can time it around Death Stranding 2, if that comes out this year.
If that comes out this year. Or some sort of Hideo Kojima something or other. Who knows? Maybe we'll get super into Hideo Kojima games this year, and we'll play like, because the remake of Metal Gear something is coming out, right? 3, 4? No,
yeah, I think
2?
It's 3. But they're calling it Delta, and I guess that was like the beginning of the story, but not the first game. Yeah,
because it used to be like kind of a top-down something or other on like Super Nintendo or something, and now it's the crazy Hideo Kojima story that we know. So yeah, maybe we'll get super into it and play all of his games that we can access.
Yeah, they just re-released like,
I think 4 is on Xbox.
Of all the old ones.
Yeah,
I think 4 is the only one that is really inaccessible. I think that's the one that's locked to PS3.
That's right. 5 is Xbox.
5 is on Xbox. That's the one I've played. Yeah.
And then they have the like prequel to 5 or whatever.
Which I think is basically just like one big mission. I don't know. I've started it a couple times and never.
I am interested to see what he does with Jordan Peele. I am.
Yeah.
So.
And apparently other creators. Like, I think the theory is that it's going to be like an anthology thing, because he referenced working with other like horror creators, probably Del Toro, because they have a relationship already.
That would make sense.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
But let's go ahead and wrap up last year and move into this year.
All right.
So this year we decided to try to keep our predictions a little shorter and like more, well, just shorter. Like, we have 5 each that we're going to go.
Yeah.
Mostly so that we could try to fit it all into one episode. Do you want to start, or you want me to start?
Yeah, I can start.
All right. What's your first prediction?
So, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming out this year.
Yes.
And I haven't played the first one. I do own the first one. I just haven't gotten around to playing it. I'll probably play it at some point this year.
Nice.
But my understanding is that they are doing some things with the story that's tweaking it and changing it. And I think they're going to continue to do this into this next game. and subvert fan. So the big thing that everybody knows happens in Final Fantasy VII, spoilers if you haven't played these games, is Aerith gets killed by Sephiroth. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they're going to lean even heavier into like the alternate timeline, trying to like fix things or whatever it is that they're doing. But I think they're going to subvert some stuff. Maybe Cloud gets killed. So my prediction is they're going to subvert expectations and Aerith is not going to die.
Yeah.
My bonus is like maybe Cloud dies and Aerith lives, or maybe it's like that girl from the first part that they like was kind of a small part in the original game that they've kind of played up. Maybe she's the new girl that dies and Aerith lives. But my main prediction is Aerith doesn't die, and they're going back and rewriting this. So
yeah, I think that's pretty likely, especially based on the ending of 7 Part 1 or whatever, 7 Remake, just kind of the way they left it open. I mean,
I thought this was an out there prediction. I didn't realize it was kind of like the working theory.
I wouldn't be surprised if they flip character deaths and things like that on their head.
Yeah, because that's the thing I think everyone knows about Final Fantasy VII is Aerith dies. That's the big thing. And so I think they're going to come into this and not do that. And will that be received well? I don't know. But that is my prediction.
Okay. My first prediction is way less deep. But my first is a very simple, just score-based one. I think Hellblade 2 will release this year.
Okay, that's a bold prediction in and of itself.
And it will be above 90 on Metacritic, critically.
I do think that if it comes out this year, it will be. I think it has the high likelihood of being Xbox Game Studios like big serious
drama
hit.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, since they've kind of been in this phase of putting out games, if they've really had that big, huge hit. Halo didn't do it. The last Gears of War game that came out was good. That was well received, but it was, to me, that was kind of like maybe almost before they were in this current phase that we're in. Starfield didn't do it. Redfield didn't do it. Redfall didn't do it.
Yeah.
So I do think if Senua's Saga comes out, I can see that being I hope, fingers crossed, as a fan of Xbox, that it is good. But I'll get it for free and play it. So
absolutely, best deal in gaming.
Free Game Pass.
Yeah. What's your next one?
My next one, speaking of Redfall, I think this is its redemption story year.
Oh no!
I think
I don't think they care enough about that game to redeem it.
Well. Yes and no. On the one hand, I can just see them cutting and running. On the other hand, it's the Prey studio. I don't know what they're working on, but also I think that they have a sort of ethic where they would want to like come in and make that game better, make it meet closer to expectations. Is it going to be a 10 out of 10 game when they're finished with it? Is it going to have the Cyberpunk 2077 sort of No Man's Sky glow up? I don't know that it hits those heights, but I do think by the end of this year, 2024, Redfall, like you go in, you play it, and you're like, that was a good video game, because the state it's in right now, or at least the state it was in when it launched, was not even a good video game.
Right.
And so I think will it get re-reviewed? I think this will be one that maybe has to get debated, but I think Redfall gets a redemption. I think Microsoft cares enough about like we want to become known as like a better studio or a better publisher, and so like, hey, why don't you guys pour some TLC into this game for the next year and a half, try to get it up to a better standard,
Okay. We shall see.
Yeah.
My next prediction is Dragon's Dogma 2 and Dragon Age Dreadwolf both release And Dragon's Dogma will have the better reviews and win more awards. And it will also be the RPG that we both prefer if we happen to play both of them next year. Like if we get around to playing both of them. So it's kind of like a three-parter. We can debate scores when we do our recap next year. But
I don't think Dreadwolf is coming out, but it will be interesting to see. I do think Dragon's Dogma is going to come out. I do think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Because the first game, I think a lot of people in hindsight have been like, man, that game was amazing.
Yeah, I think 2 has a lot more eyes on it.
And I think we talked about this previously on another episode, perhaps, but like it's Capcom, and Capcom has been doing a lot of cool quality of life stuff. Like, because I've tried to get into the original Dragon's Dogma. Number one, it's a massive game. Number two, it's an older game with some convoluted systems, and it's old Capcom where it was like extra convoluted. And so I have hope that like new Capcom that's been, pumping out like remakes of old Resident Evil games and like Monster Hunter World and the new Resident Evil games and, those kind of things. It's going to come out and it's going to be like, hey,
new Street Fighter.
Yeah. New Street, like where like Capcom to me in this day and age is like, I expect a level of quality from them where I could see it being really good. And as much as it pains me to say it, I do think the part about it being our preferred, one of the two is probably going to be true if both do happen to come out. Do you think you get points for it even if Dreadwolf doesn't come out, or is it specifically only if both come out and we dip our toes into some of them?
I mean, that's what we'll kind of have to hash out, but I think that if they both don't come out, that really limits the points I can get from this prediction.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, because if by default Dragon's Dogma is our favorite because Dreadwolf didn't come out,
right?
No,
yeah,
I don't think that
counts.
Points,
no,
so.
Yeah.
All right, my next prediction: the new Switch is announced. Mm-hmm. It is coming out this year, and it is called the Super Nintendo Switch, and it is more of an iteration than a new thing. Not an iteration in terms of like the OLED or whatever, but like there will be some new stuff that is
but it
exclusive.
will very obviously be a Switch still.
But yeah,
it won't be like a GameCube to Wii kind of jump.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like the Wii to Wii U sort of situation where it was like the Wii U had the new screen. Like it did something different, something new, something better. Like a lot of people didn't buy the Wii U because it was like, well, why?
It's very confusing naming and marketing. But
and I think that will continue because I do think they're going to name it something stupid that doesn't really distinguish it from the Switch, and people will just be like, so it's just a Switch. I have one of those, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be like I don't know exactly how it's going to work. I don't know, like, will there be things that are only playable on the new Switch? I don't know, but that is my prediction. Like, I think extra bonus points if I nail the name, like Super Nintendo Switch, but my main prediction, I think, is that it is coming actually this year.
Yeah.
And it is more of an
iteration, yeah,
versus a new thing.
My next prediction is that Shadow of the Erdtree releases in the fall this year as FromSoft's big release, and it's a whole new map to explore, and it's over 25 hours of content. So another kind of multi-piece prediction. Looking back at like Bloodborne's DLC and Sekiro didn't get anything, they got like a boss rush mode or something, and then Dark Souls 3 maybe was a little bit beefier than Bloodborne, but like most of them are pretty small when compared to the base game.
Yeah.
I think Elden Ring being a much bigger game is going to have much bigger DLC. Also, it's coming way later than a lot of the other DLCs came following up their games. So,
yeah, I think my fourth prediction is going to be my Shadow of the Erdtree prediction, which is basically the same as your Shadow of the Erdtree prediction. I said, though, at least 40 hours of playtime. So that'll be kind of the main distinguishing factor there. Is like,
is it a quarter of the base game or half of the base game?
Yeah. That's going to be And I guess I'm thinking as well, like 2 playthrough, like not like, oh, well, I got 40 hours out of it because I played through New Game Plus again,
Right.
like,
yeah. Like the full baseline experience. Yeah. So I tried to sort mine as like least spicy going into most spicy. So going into my 4th prediction, I'm predicting that Star Wars Outlaws will release this year.
Okay.
And it's going to be nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards.
I mean, if it comes out, I do think it's getting a nomination. I will agree with you there. Will it come out this year? I don't think there's a chance in hell it comes out this year. Because it's the Division studio, right?
Yeah.
They've got like 2 Division games coming out this year. There's no way that they're working on Outlaw.
They're also the studio that did the Avatar game.
Are they? Yeah, there's no way.
And that game was one that people were like, there's no way that actually comes out. And it came out.
I mean, yeah, but it wasn't. It was fine.
I mean, nobody cared about it.
Yeah.
But if it releases, that's half the prediction. So I'll take the half of the point.
That's fair.
But like I said, I wanted to get more and more kind of Hail Mary the further my predictions went on.
I don't think that game's coming out this year. I think it gets pushed to early 2025.
I would not be surprised at all if that happens.
Yeah. But if it does, I do think it's getting nominated. All right. So my final prediction, rather than making just a bunch of Xbox predictions, I kind of bundled them all in one. So this is going to be a multi-parter that is maybe going to be worth more than the single point, potentially, depending on how, because a lot of them are very long shots. And so it all starts off with, I think 2024 is going to be the year of Xbox. Okay. I do think it's like in the industry, like there's always, again, console wars are stupid. I play the bit character of like, oh, Xbox console wars, like Sony sucks. But I do think in the console wars that exist, like this will be the year of Xbox. I think critically people will be like, what is Sony doing? And like, man, Xbox really blew it out of the water. Like there's a comeback. Like these, we're kind of halfway through these consoles' life cycles or whatever. Or maybe, they're getting older, but like, man, Sony just had a really, like, they fumbled this year and Xbox took advantage of that and was like, I think that's going to be the narrative.
Okay.
And so I think that that's going to be kind of defined by a few different things. Number one, kind of like we talked about already, I do think Xbox is going to have a lot more games this year. Like, I do think they're going to have some bangers that come out, and we don't really know what Sony's even putting out. So I like, other than Last of Us Remastered, which shouldn't even exist. It should be a free upgrade to PlayStation 5 and not and I'm not saying, a $20 price tag upgrade for PlayStation 5 Sony. I'm saying a free upgrade, but okay. So I think it'll also be, Microsoft is going to go hard in like mobile gaming. So they just bought Activision Blizzard King. King is a big mobile gamer side of it. And I think they're bringing a lot of those people that have heavily developed on mobile side to try to push on the mobile side for Xbox.
Yeah.
Basically making like what you were saying of like that app that you can download anywhere, that you can play Xbox Game Pass cloud streaming anywhere. I think that happens this year with the acquisition of King, because also I think that's bringing more people into Game Pass. And I think that's what they're focused on.
Yeah, for sure.
I think they start getting more into like the TV show movie space, like Sony did the past couple of years. Again,
like with the Halo show.
Well, not with the Halo show, but I think this is driven more by their acquisition of Blizzard, where they finally put the money behind making an Overwatch show.
Okay.
And try to like change the narrative of some of these things, but like lean into the character. Like Blizzard has a lot of iconic characters that Microsoft doesn't have as much of.
They could do like an Arcane style thing on Netflix,
like a Warcraft or like a Starcraft thing, like animated show with Netflix or something. I think they start leaning more heavily into that kind of stuff. And wrapping up my prediction with my traditional, here are some that I think Microsoft could acquire. NeoWiz, the makers of the Lies of P game. I could see them hopping on that train early to
Yeah.
be like, make us a Bloodborne and
That'd be
locking in future, because they're not going to pick up FromSoft. Like FromSoft's not going to be bought by them. And I think Sony bought Bluepoint, so they can't snipe Bluepoint. And so it's kind of like, all right, so we will, like, NeoWiz, Korean
be our
developer.
Souls people.
Well, Korean developer, so not as much ties to like the Japanese giants anymore. And so it's like that one, it, to me, seems attainable. Konami. I think they could buy Konami.
Okay.
Konami's had a troubled history in the past few years, much like Microsoft's other recent purchase, Activision Blizzard. So I think they could be, you know, Konami got out of the video game publishing thing for a series of years, and they're back now. But I could see them looking at, like, I could see Microsoft coming up to them and being like, hey, what if we bought this, which also comes with like the IPs of Metal Gear Solid and some of these other things. Not only do I think that would be, you know, like even more major points with Kojima, who they're working with, because it's like, hey, you know, all of the things you created, we own them now. Right. And so like we can greenlight these projects you've been wanting to do even more, so stay with us. Or become our new director for the like TV show movie side of things. But so Konami is another one. Ubisoft. I could see them trying to do Ubisoft. I don't think Ubisoft, like Ubisoft is my Activision that I'm just throwing in here. I don't think they'll actually buy Ubisoft, especially so soon after Activision Blizzard. That's really probably more of like a 3 or 5 years down the road thing. But it could happen. And then Capcom. Capcom's my last one that I put on my list of potential buys, because I still think they're trying to like hit that part of the market that's kind of like, I think Capcom, I think Konami, I think, you know, that like could Sega, I think that fills in kind of their like a gap, the
Japanese
that they have.
Market, like Asian market.
I don't think they'd pick up Square Enix, because I think Square Enix is too in bed with Sony.
Yeah.
I'd love to see them try to pick up Larian, but I don't see Larian, especially when I looked into like the history of Larian Studios and like, because the guy, like the head guy of Larian Studios, the one who was in the armor at the Game Awards, was, you know, basically has sworn off working with publishers anymore because of such a bad experience. So I don't think he gets in bed with Microsoft, especially with how much of a success Baldur's Gate was.
Yeah.
They may not even have to crowdfund their next game in early access and stuff. They may just have the money to develop it how they want to and just put it out themselves. So, but yeah, so that's kind of like my bundled into one Microsoft prediction of that all kind of falls under the umbrella of, I think it is the year of Xbox. I think they come out with the banger games, the banger exclusives, and Sony does not. I think they start going harder into some of these markets that will help them grow, like the mobile cloud gaming space, like even more so. Like, I think it becomes a thing. I think they start putting some of their stuff on TV to kind of get that space. And I think maybe they pick up a smaller thing, you know, something that's not going to necessarily trigger another FTC battle.
Yeah.
Picking up Neo is I don't think anyone's looking twice at that.
So we decided on 5 predictions, and you were like, well, let me just cram like 7 into one.
Well, because I had a list of like 9, and as I was looking at them, I'm like, I mean, half of these are like Microsoft Xbox, predictions. So rather, like, let me try to figure out a way to just bundle all of that, because that way I can still talk about my other predictions.
I think you're probably onto something for a lot of those. I think some of your predictions might be premature, but I could definitely see them happening at some point. I just don't know if it'll happen this year.
Yeah, that is my curse with Microsoft. Is like, I'm like, I feel like I can sometimes understand what they are shooting for, and it's just like, is this happening though, or is it like still too early? Like the digital Xbox One digital stuff, where they were crucified for it at the beginning, and that's how we all play games now. So,
well, my last prediction is much.
They were going to let you share games with your friends digitally. They were going to let you do that, and you people bitched about it so much that now we can't. So, thank you. I'm off my soapbox.
Feel better?
Yes.
My last prediction is much shorter and sweeter than yours. Mine is about the Switch 2. I agree that it is going to release, but where I differentiate from you is that I think the launch lineup for that console is going to include an Ocarina of Time remake and Metroid Prime 4.
I could see that.
And when I don't mean like a port of the 3DS version, or like
you mean like
they're going to remake it
4 and the remastered version, remade version of.
Well, yeah, like Metroid Prime 4 is a new game.
Yeah. But Ocarina
of Time, I could see them like basically redoing it in the Breath of the Wild engine or something like that, to where it's like a modern looking and playing game.
Yeah. I could see that. So your prediction is essentially they will continue to not release the 2 Zelda games everyone wants them to release, and they will remake a new Zelda or an older Zelda game that is beloved, but also like people are kind of clamoring for 2 others, and they're done.
Yeah, I think they'll be more happy about an Ocarina of Time remake than we were when we got the Skyward Sword remaster or remake or whatever. And people are like, wait, well, you have Wind Waker just sitting there. Give us that one. But yeah, so that is my final prediction.
Yeah, I almost made a similar prediction that was like in the launch lineup of the Switch 2 or whatever is Elden Ring. And they're just like, it's coming to, like, that's, and Shadow of the Erd Tree bundled in.
That'd be insane.
Right? Like, it runs Elden Ring. So, which, now that I think about it, would be amazing.
That would be.
Because
pretty cool.
Breath of the Wild was good, but Elden Ring for me was essentially Breath of the Wild. And so if I could just play that on Switch, that'd be amazing.
Well, those are our predictions for the upcoming year. We will track them, and again in 2025 we will look back, and whoever won gets to pick a game for the other one to play, like we did on this episode. Do we have any housekeeping?
We've got some new videos on YouTube.
Yeah,
go check them out. We have a YouTube channel. If you're listening to this show and you want to help us out without like really having to do a whole lot, liking some videos and subscribing to us on YouTube would help us out.
Comments are really big.
Yeah. So if you watch something and you comment on it, you like it, you watch the whole thing, that helps throw it into the algorithm and kind of get it out there. And if you're not subscribed, subscribing helps, because we're edging closer to the first milestone of monetization on YouTube. Not that we're like expecting a whole lot out of that, but
it'll be nice. It's a nice goal to hit.
Yeah, it's a cool goal to hit. Plus, like anything to mitigate a little bit of the cost of the show would be nice.
We did hit our 400 subscribers that we referenced like an episode or two ago, so that was exciting. Supporting the podcast, similar thing. If you can rate or review us on your platform of choice, that'd be great. You can even do it on our website. And then if you want to get in touch with us, hang out with us, talk to us, be part of the community on a little bit of a deeper level, hop into our Discord. It is linked in our podcast description and super easy to find there. And yeah, we'll be talking about video games in there. So if you want to take this conversation further, if you want to share your thoughts on the episode, that is the place to do it. This has been our 2023 prediction results and our predictions for 2024. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Friendly Neighborhood Gamers podcast. If so, we would greatly appreciate your help in growing the show and the community by giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any other podcasting app that allows it.
We also have some great videos on our YouTube channel, including reviews, rankings, and other topics. We would really appreciate you checking it out. And if you want to keep up with everything going on in the neighborhood, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and feel free to jump in our Discord server.
We hope to see you there. Links for everything are in the podcast description. Thanks again for listening, and remember,
Stay friendly, gamers.